you, Chair. See, when I was nominated here, it was for the people, and my questions that I have in front of me are from the residents of Oireachtas Centre. My colleague, Senator Francis Black, visited along with Deputy Nessa Hergen. So, you don't have to answer these questions, but I'd like a reason why, not for me personally, but for the residents that failed, to be honest, that has been failed for the last year and a half. As we know, the centre was closed in June 2021. The residents fought very hard to, according to the residents now, for the lie I was told, that the residents fought very hard to get mental health supports when the centre was closed down. They were moved out far away from home in Cork, and we know that people with disabilities have the right to live independently life. And the focus of this committee is the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, the rights of people being able to live in their own community. So everything that's happened over the last year and a half, and how people has failed in this centre, how do you stand by that? So that there is one of my questions. How do you when you did meet with the people in August, they never, and it was 7 residents, they never felt listened to. Now again, this is not me, this is the people, so you're answering to the people, put me out of the picture. Also, when you told the Irish Examiner 2 weeks ago that you are satisfied that there were safeguards in place for the centre to uphold the rights of residents, some of those families wrote to the Health Committee and to ourselves afterwards to say that they were shocked by your comments. They said that you had passed on the concerns. They're very concerned to HSE. So, again, they're very simple questions, and the last question is how can you ensure you can give, how do you ensure you can give that people support the remaining 6 residents in the centre? So how can you support them? Again, that question is coming in behalf of the residents. Don't answer it to me, please answer your answers to the residents. And then I have another question, which, you know, in other countries, there's evidence that says that people, gender and your ethnicity play a big role in determining if you're a person that will more at risk ending up in a mental institution service. Does the Mental Health Commission collect and publish data, say somebody from the traveller community, a refugee person, a woman who is homeless? Do you collect this data, and if not, do you plan upon an identity? What do you call it? An identifier? You know, the ethnicity identifier. If you don't have it, do you plan upon having it? And then, as we heard other colleagues say, there's an over-representative of people who are homeless and have mental health issues in our prison system. Have you got a record of that? And just to say that we are in a mental, speaking about mental health, I know many young traveller men at the moment that feels very failed by the mental health services within. Now, obviously, that's not personal to the 3 witnesses here today. That there is the system as well. But I see young men that, again, some addiction issues, very bad with mental health. I spoke to a woman on Monday. Her son is in a mental health service. In Dublin, we were trying to support a young man to get mental health supports. And in many cases, these young people are just seen to be, you know, the travellers are sick again. And that's how people feel, you know. So how can we make it better for people from ethnic minority groups to be able to get the supports that they need? Now, I remember this is going back about 10 years ago, in the Mater Hospital, and there's the A&E. I remember going in with I'm a chronic pain sufferer, so sometimes that can be you can be seen as a bit crazy over that as well. And I remember I was meant to see a psychiatric doctor, right, because I was in chronic pain, and I was put in a corner. Now, they found out that it was the 2 screws that in my foot was tipping off the skin and was making it very hard to walk. And I was put in this corner, and how people were treated in our A&E services were absolutely appalling. So I want to know, the Commission, how do we plan upon being better practice? What do we need to meet the needs of the people? As we know, our mental health crisis within Irish society has gotten worse, not only for the traveller community, but from people from all walks of life. So, yeah, they're my questions.
Do you want to answer? I suppose I just want to be clear, we're not responsible for providing mental health services. We don't provide or run any approved centre in Ireland.
But you are the Mental Health Commission, no?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we don't, we're not, we can't, it's the provider, for example, the HSE on behalf of the state, who are charged with the care and welfare of people in centres. And I'm sorry, I know that I'm not trying to put off him, but that's it. And the other thing about, in a particular approved centres, providers, we don't have any powers to stop someone closing an approved centre. We've no powers. If someone wants to close an approved centre, they can do it quite genuinely. And then what we try and do is, as much as possible, using the powers that we have, really make as much happen to protect the care and welfare. But we don't have many powers. I mean, I don't want to get into a row reading you the boring stuff, but I can read out the powers that we actually have, and they're very minimal. They're very, very minimal. And that's why we're asking for the Act to be changed and the regulations to be changed. So, look, I can read it out if you want. Like, it's not, and just stop me if you think, no, I'm just bluffing, but I'm not. I just want to show you the actual powers that we actually have, and they're very minimal. I mean, the law requires that the proprietor of the approved centre informs us within 3 months. That's all the law requires. It requires prior to closure, the proprietor shall arrange for the transfer of each voluntary resident who continues to require treatment to an alternative one, and that it's in accordance with his or her care plan. And then when a resident is transferred from another, that the new provider understands, has the receiving information, and they shall continue to provide care and treatment for mental illness or mental disorder for a period of 3 months from the date of serving notice of intention to cease. That's all the law says, nothing else. It doesn't give us power to intervene in any way. So we're kind of like watching, we're down there a lot, we're trying to talk to people, we talk to residents, but we actually have no powers. The HSE has the power, the board of the HSE has the power, the funding departments have the power. We just don't have it. So I know, and I'm genuinely not trying to, shift anywhere, while I'm trying to, without undermining anything that we hope to do. Susan, is there anything from your end?
I share your concern about the A&E, and especially for people who are seriously mentally ill. It's no place really to have. We don't regulate A&Es. I have visited a number of them.
So if we were to look at reviewing and changing the Act, well, how because I don't mean to be anyway smart in saying this, sorry Chair, I'm nearly finished, but you come in front of us and we had questions from residents, questions from some communities, and you've got little or no powers as the Commissioner. So I think, if anything, I think it's good that we know that today. But what would changing that Act look like for you? Maybe that there could be more relative question. So if you could answer that question, the Chair is going to kill me. Sorry, Chair. It's just.
So I think there should be some sort of a compulsion to. So if we look, say, in the Cork general area, the units down there are behind the rest of the country, but yet that we haven't had the power to kind of stop that, because you're in a very, very tricky situation, because people need the beds, even if they're low quality beds, because there's nothing else. And there should be some compulsion in law to ensure that the assets of the state are kept up to a normal, acceptable standard in a community, that they're not slowly over time not invested in. So, look, the reason people are struggling today and advocating, and I do appreciate people are advocating. I mean, Susan, we were down there recently talking, and I do appreciate where people are coming from, because I would be the same. But unless we understand that we have to invest in the services, and there has to be a compulsion in law, you can't just neglect something over time. It's just not fair, but that's not in the law.
And I mean, if I could add, Chair, just you asked about what those changes would look like. As my colleagues have outlined, we don't have the powers. That is why we really need the Mental Health Act. The Mental Health Act is 2001. It was a very different time, a very different approach. We want a Mental Health Act that is informed by all the principles of the UNCRPD, and we also need the regulations that fit under that to be much more specific about residents' rights in situations like you describe. And also, as another layer, we need a statutory safeguarding framework, which is not in place at the moment for people in mental health services, which would vastly improve their rights in situations like you describe. And I suppose because we do have examples up and down the country of really good decongregation in other health and social care sectors in particular. I've worked in disability services where we have really good examples of people moving from institutions, really outdated institution, into appropriate community settings, which they are advocating for, which they are choosing, which they are asking to be part of. And I think that that regulatory framework and structures is much different to the one we have, and that's what we're calling for.
Okay, thank you.